All right, let's talk about the future. Because by 2026, the world we live in could be running on a totally new operating system. Today, we're diving into three huge shifts in industry, in finance, and in software itself. And these ideas are coming straight from the investors who are actually building this new world.
So we're going to tackle some big questions. How is AI literally going to rebuild the physical world around us? Why are banks and insurance companies finally about to scrap technology from the 70s? And what happens when software stops being a tool you use and starts being an assistant that works for you? Let's get into it. First up, we're looking at a huge idea from Ryan McIntosh. It's about how America's entire industrial base is about to get a fundamental AI-powered upgrade. So, when you hear Electro-Industrial Stack, don't just picture a factory. Think smaller. Think about the guts of the machines that are going to define our future. We're talking about the batteries, the motors, the really sophisticated power electronics, and of course, the compute, the raw processing power that AI will use to physically interact with and control the real world.
Okay, but here's the challenge, and this slide lays it out perfectly. The US is fantastic at very specific, high-end engineering, inventing the next big thing. But China, they have the entire ecosystem, the tier 1, 2, and 3 suppliers, the access to raw materials, the whole shebang. And that forces a company like SpaceX to basically build everything themselves, not because they want to, but because they have to. Without that ecosystem, you're not really solving the bottleneck, you're just moving it somewhere else.
So how do you even begin to catch up? Well, the playbook seems to have three key moves. First, you blend talent. You take the grizzled veterans who worked on the shuttle program and you pair them with fast-moving software engineers from Silicon Valley. Second, you co-locate. You put the engineering desks right next to the factory floor so the feedback loop from design to production is instant. And third, and this is so important, you attach a powerful, prestigious mission to the work. You need to attract the absolute best minds on the planet.
And that quote right there, it just lays out the stakes perfectly. This isn't just about making better drones or electric cars. This is about who's going to control the economic and military levers of power for the next 100 years. It's really about securing national influence.
So if that's how AI gets its hands dirty in the physical world, what happens when it gets its hands on our money? Let's pivot to the next big idea, this one from Angela Strange.
For decades, and I mean decades, banks and insurance companies have been running on these ancient mainframe systems. The risk of trying to change them was always seen as way too high. Well, that whole equation is about to flip on its head. Suddenly, the risk of not changing is becoming the single biggest threat.
Take a look at this number, 5%. This is the kind of profit margin a business like mortgage servicing could expect to make, completely handcuffed by that old, clunky technology. And now, look at this, 50%. That's a 10 times improvement. A 10x jump in margins unlocked by switching to a modern, AI-native system. When you see a leap like that, you know an entire industry is about to get completely reshaped.
And this new infrastructure changes absolutely everything. First, workflows go from sequential to parallel. Instead of one person doing one task at a time for a mortgage, a team can see all 400-plus tasks at once, with AI agents jumping in and doing them simultaneously. Second, software categories just expand. One platform can now handle fraud, risk, and compliance, things that used to be in totally separate silos. And third, the winners get way bigger, scaling in ways the old guard just can't compete with.
So you might be asking, okay, why is all this happening right now? It's really a perfect storm of three things. The old mainframes are literally at their breaking point. Companies are realizing they are leaving massive amounts of money on the table because their old systems can't keep up with demand. And for the first time, there are actually incredible AI-first platforms that are ready to step in and take over.
We've seen AI executing in the physical and financial worlds. Now Sarah Wang explains how that same exact shift from passive data to active execution is about to completely upend the software we use every single day.
For years, the stickiest, most valuable part of business software was the system of record. Think of it as the company's digital filing cabinet. It held all the data. Well, for the first time ever, that's being seriously threatened by something called a dynamic agent layer. This isn't a filing cabinet. This is an executive assistant that sits on top of the data and actually does things for you.
Just think about a simple task from the old world, like getting access to a new piece of software at your job. It was a whole saga, right? You file a ticket, your manager has to find it and approve it, then IT gets it, they manually grant you access, and eventually you get a notification. It was slow and painful.
Now, in this new world, an AI agent just understands what you want. It maps your intent to a workflow and just does it instantly, accurately. The gap between what you want and what gets done completely collapses. And that isn't a 20% improvement. That's a 10x improvement.
So what this means is that the whole value structure of enterprise software is being flipped on its head. Value is shifting up the stack. It's moving away from the passive database, the filing cabinet, and toward the active agent layer that's closest to you, that understands what you want and that takes action. The old system of record, it just becomes a commoditized backend.
And this right here is why new companies are winning. They are a rocket ship. The technology is getting better every single week, sometimes every day. You have to move at an incredible speed to build agents that people can actually trust. And we're already seeing these new AI-native companies just blowing past the old legacy platforms, which are like steam trains by comparison.
Okay, that was a lot. Let's pull this all together and do a quick recap of the 3 massive shifts we've just covered.
So here they are, the 3 core transformations to be watching for by 2026. First, in the industrial world, it's about building a domestic manufacturing ecosystem to power our physical future. Second, in finance, we're at a tipping point where replacing ancient systems becomes a no-brainer, unlocking huge efficiency gains. And third, in enterprise software, value is shifting away from passive data storage to an active AI agent layer that just gets things done.
You know, the one common thread through all of this is that AI is moving from being a passive analysis tool to being an active execution engine. It's no longer just about giving you insights, it's about taking action. And that leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. Which industry's core filing cabinet is the next one to get thrown out?